If you have an interest in horses and love learning more about horses, the horse industry, teaching, or even managing your own horse business, then you're in the right place. We would love you to join us on our mission, which is to improve the lives of horses around the world through the education of riders, handlers, and trainers. So get comfortable, listen in, and enjoy.
This has been another episode sponsored by Online Horse College. If you haven't had a look at the wide variety of equine-specific accredited courses, then go to onlinehorsecollege.com and I'll see you over there. Before we start today's chat on Horse Chats, I want to tell you about Sophie Barrington. Now, you've all heard that she's from Archer Creative and they're the experts in equine business marketing, who are also the sponsors of this episode. She does lots of stuff. She does website design, graphic design, email marketing, social media marketing, public relations and copywriting. But she does such a broad variety, I probably can't mention it all here. And if you do need to talk to her, if you've got something a little bit outside the box, you certainly need to talk to her. Sophie Barrington at Archer Creative. And just go to horsechats.com, search for Sophie, search for Barrington, or search for Archer Creative, and you'll find her contact details on those pages. And you can also listen to some of the podcast episodes and chats that she's had with us, just giving out some free information to help you in your equine business marketing. Now, today's guest is a Pilates instructor who's gone across to, well, she's a dressage rider as well, and she's been able to combine the two. So I'd like to introduce you to Helen Fletcher. How are you today, Helen?
I'm very well, thank you, Glenys.
Now, Helen, before we started, I wanted to make sure that I got this right. So what I found was that Pilates was a system of exercises using special apparatus designed to improve the physical strength, flexibility and posture and enhance mental awareness. Would you describe it as that?
Yes, pretty much, Glenys. You don't need apparatus, but we do work on apparatus as well.
Yep.
So Joseph Pilates' first exercises was the 34 mat exercises. So that's how he started, just working on the mat.
Yes.
And then he later developed the work with the equipment a little bit later on in his career. But yes, it does all of those things.
Okay, and I think if it's going to improve the physical strength, flexibility and posture, that's perfect for riding. So it's a great complementary exercise. Yeah.
It is, absolutely.
Okay. Look, Helen, before we start, do you have a favourite quote that you'd like to introduce yourself with?
I do. I have so many favourite quotes. I really love quotes. I've been in for a long time. But the one that's resonating with me at the moment is a beautiful quote by Eric Franklin, and I can tell you a little bit more about him in a minute.
Yes.
And the quote is, "Posture is a balancing act, not a position." And that's, I'm thinking about that quote a lot throughout my work the last couple of months. I've actually got it stuck on the wall above my desk at the moment.
I think the best quotes get stuck on walls. They do, don't they? So you can remember them all the time.
Eric Franklin, some of the readers or some of the listeners may know who he is, but there's a very interesting link with Eric Franklin and the late Sally Swift.
Okay.
They both worked with and were influenced by Mabel Todd. Now, Mabel Todd is recognised as the founder of what is now known as idiokinesis. So it's anatomically based creative visual imagery that helps to improve your posture, your alignment and your movement, and also your knowledge of anatomy. So there's a lovely link there between Eric Franklin's work and Sally Swift.
Okay. Well, Sally Swift is well known to people, as someone that's been able to just have, I'd say, complementary work for competitive riders. She sort of did things that were a little bit outside the box, that first of all, people were quite shocked by some of the exercises, but then started to realise how they helped mainstream riders.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
I probably tend to work a little similarly in some ways with her, or in the reference that some of the clinics initially in my mat classes, people are a little bit surprised by some of the things I do, which are a bit less centre.
Yep.
In the beginning of the class.
Well, that's what they might think because they haven't come across it before. But if you've got the benefits and you've got those people coming back and recommending you to their friends, then I think that's sort of proof in itself, isn't it, that it's going to work?
Yes, absolutely. Yep. And that certainly is happening at the moment.
Yep, yep. Helen, can you remember something earlier on in your riding and your work with horses where you started to be more aware of rider position? What was, thinking of something there along the lines? Have you got a story for us or tell us when you were first more aware of rider position?
I think I was very lucky as a young rider. My sister and I have two sisters, but only one of them was riding seriously. We were very lucky when we were young. We were taught by a woman called Glenys Cox, who is quite well known in the Western District. And she was a student of Franz Moringa. So from the age of 11, I had dressage lessons with Glenys Cox, who was affectionately known as Squish to all of her pupils, although we weren't allowed to call her that to her face. And she talked a lot about position. She was incredible, and we all learned a lot. We learned basic equine biomechanics, which is pretty amazing because this was back in the late 60s, early 70s. She taught us about footfalls, lateral flexion and bend, longitudinal flexion. And within that, our position was always very important. And we were taught to ride well. And that probably made a big impression on me. And then many years later, after my first Pilates session, which was about 25 years ago now, I started practicing Pilates. And it was honestly at the end of my first session as I was walking home, that I thought this would be brilliant for riders. Just the attention to detail, the focus on alignment and posture, focus, concentration, control, all of those things are very important and quite integral to the practice of Pilates, which I think marries really well with riding, and particularly with dressage, but with all riding.
Yep. Actually, I was going to ask you then, when did you first get the idea of combining Pilates with horses? But if it was after your first session, that just goes to show
it was
how...
actually 25 years ago.
Yeah. Wow.
I didn't rush it, Glenys.
Okay, how long have you actually been teaching Pilates, though? Because that was when you first started. You probably did it more as a complement to your own riding. But when did you start teaching Pilates to equestrians?
I started teaching, per se, 13 years ago. And probably within the first 3 or 4 years of teaching, I had my first rider. And I really found that rider by default. She ended up in my class.
Okay.
And just through conversations with her, I actually voiced what my idea was and what I eventually hoped to do. Then that developed into getting a few more riders. But it really wasn't until last year, around October, that I decided to take a very big step forward. So I had a few riders. I'd written for Dressage Today magazine. I'd written for Equestrian Life magazine. But I decided that I needed to take that big step forward and actually go to the riders rather than expect them to come to me in Melbourne. And because I was born in Ballarat and my family is still there, I've made a decision to start to look for a space to sublet in Ballarat. So I still now teach full-time in Melbourne, but I travel up to Ballarat on a Saturday, and I targeted specifically just riders. I only teach riders up there, and then the clinics that I'm running have developed from there.
Yep.
So I've really been working very busily for the last year, but I've been ticking along very slowly, so probably 10 years prior to that.
And I'm sure that you've got some good stories, that you've got some very happy people and not just happy people, but happy horses because the riders are riding better. It's
been astounding, Glenys. I knew and I have known all my riding life that as riders we affect the horse from every aspect.
Yep.
But I'm continually thrilled and it's deeply satisfying to see the change in the horses. I just had a 3-day clinic at Galesford Equestrian, and the results that were able to be achieved over that 3-day period were incredible. And there's photographs actually on my Equipoise Pilates Facebook page of one particular couple, Jane and Ben, and it was just amazing.
Okay,
And
good.
the attendees of the clinic are thrilled, and I was equally thrilled.
Yeah, yeah. What do you think's the best thing about teaching Pilates to equestrians, to horse riding people?
From a personal perspective,
Yeah,
or from
I think
the
so.
perspective
No,
of the riders themselves?
I think that's their point of view, but what's your point of view?
The satisfaction of seeing quite profound change. And I think when we improve our awareness, our control, our dynamic stability, it enables us to communicate much more clearly with the horses. We become a lot quieter as far as riders go. And this promotes a much more harmonious partnership and a much happier horse and a much happier rider. Because knowing that I think what I find most personally satisfying to me as a rider is knowing that I have control of my body and that I can do whatever I need to do with it and it's not inhibiting me. And I think that's a really big thing because the rider's body can inhibit the rider and then the rider themselves can be inhibiting the horse.
Yep. Okay. No, that makes sense.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. It does. You've talked about Gwen Stead. What did you call her? Squish?
Yes.
And so ultimately it would be Gwen who influenced you, but then, Franz Maringer as well, who's had a lot of influence over a lot of people, like directly or through an instructor that he's taught. He's had a huge influence because he really was ahead of his time coming into Australia. But who else has influenced you, either with horses or with Pilates?
I think with Pilates it's been primarily my teachers that I had, my very first teachers. I landed on my feet when I first started Pilates in Melbourne. It was very unknown 25 years ago, and I had to go searching, and I found myself in a terrific studio with a husband and wife who were a team who were fantastic teachers. And then from them, the teachers that had influenced me throughout my training. But our greatest teachers are always our clients. So I think that's been the biggest influence on me, would be working with a lot of often very injured clients or clients that have got quite serious pathologies, and then learning through them. And that's given me a lot of confidence actually in my own ability to work with people that have a less than perfect body in terms of their level of pain and so forth.
Yep.
As far as my riding goes, again, I think I haven't had a lot of teachers over my lifetime, but a combination of all of them and the horses themselves.
Yes.
Has that answered that clearly?
I think so. I think that, you're talking about your injured clients, but I'm sure that the feedback you get from your clients as well and the feedback that they're getting from their horses. So do you work directly with the people and their horses, or you work with the people separate to their horses?
I used to just work with the riders in the studio, but now that I'm running the clinics, I work with them on their horses as well. And that has just been the most exciting step forward for me. So the clinic runs on a fairly simple format where I work with 4 riders at a time in a mat class. And the mat class is designed to really prepare them for riding. We then go on to the arena and divide into 2, and I take 2 at a time for an hour on the arena. And I work with a lot of different things. Some of them are little balls and a bit of visual imagery. We work on posture, and the results that are coming from that have been really terrific.
Yeah.
And I think putting people on their horses, it just gives them it puts the work we're doing into a real-time situation. And I found that riders absolutely love their horses. So to be doing Pilates that involves their horses at the same time has been really popular, and everyone has got a lot out of it and is really enjoying the combination.
I'm sure that you would have noticed big differences, especially with your clients. Are you noticing differences just within your workshops with the horses, or are they a bit more that people might contact you after the workshop and say that there's a difference?
We can see it. I can see a difference generally before the class is half over.
Oh, that's good.
So generally within the first half hour of the session, there's been a change in the horse.
Yep.
It's quite quick. And I do a bit of work to release tight muscles and just some of these small postural changes. A lot of the horses to me look like they've taken a big breath out.
Yep.
They become a lot softer. Their movement changes, and the riders can feel that quite quickly.
Mm-hmm.
I try and capture what I can, if I can, on video or on my phone for them. That's a little tricky for me because I'm usually really very focused on what I'm doing.
Yep.
And my concentration has to be really high. But I had a friend of mine come and watch the last hour of my last clinic, and she's a horsewoman I really respect. And it was nice to stand next to someone in the centre of the arena and have her notice the big changes as well. So absolutely. I actually haven't had a horse and rider combination that haven't noticed change in the horse. There hasn't been one at all.
Good. That's good. Yeah. What sort of exercises? You start off on the mat. What sort of exercises are you doing that we could talk about, just for the listeners who may not have the opportunity to get to a workshop? What can they do to help get a difference?
That's a good question. I always start with some sort of release because most people are carrying quite a bit of tension. And if there's one thing I notice about most of the riders and I would probably hesitate to say 100%, but it probably is, that there's a lot of tight musculature.
Mm-hmm.
Some riders are a little bit weak in areas, but most are a little bit too tight. They don't stretch. They don't do any sort of release work. So we always start with that, and I start with something that brings them into their body and increases their proprioception. And proprioception is just a big word for their knowledge of where their body is. So the greater your awareness of your body, the more in tune you are with your body, and the easier it is for you to apply leg aids, know where you are in the saddle. And the word feel that we use in riding?
Yes. Sometimes it's a little bit too, everyone uses it, but I'm not sure that everyone understands it.
Feel is basically, we developed feel through proprioception. So feel is like a more highly focused sense of where our body is and in relation to timing of aids and the feel of our movement and our...
So it's a proprioception? Is that what it's called, proprioception?
Proprioception, it's a sense of where our body is.
Okay.
And through that greater heightened awareness, our feel develops. That's probably a better way of saying it, Glenys.
Yep, okay. Yeah.
So then we progress to generally spinal articulation exercises. So there are some very simple exercises, and some of them listeners could find on my Facebook page. I've made a few little videos. Very simple things like spine curls, which is just peeling the spine up from the floor if you're lying on your back with your knees bent. That's a very, very simple and very effective exercise to wake up the deep core stabilizers and begin to mobilize the spine.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the more basic ones. And cat stretches are very good to mobilise. You go onto all fours. You've probably seen those where you arch your back like a cat.
I'm thinking of a cat while you're talking. Yes. Because they do. They have a great stretch.
I tend to start with that type of thing, and then we move on to a little bit more work on beginning to wake up your dynamic stabilisers of your torso, and we work through the hips. Quite a bit of work to release the hips often prior to getting into the saddle.
Yep.
So it's generally a flowing class that starts at one point and finishes standing. I talk about elongating the spine and finding that beautiful sense of stretch up, stretch down that Gwen Stead used to talk about a lot. We refer to those axial elongation in the Pilates world. Mm-hmm. So I try and finish generally with something that puts the rider into the right state of mind and body before they hop onto the horse.
Yep.
And that doesn't mean to say you need to do that for an hour before you ride, but there's often just a couple of little simple exercises that people can do prior to getting on the horse.
Mm-hmm. What would they be? If someone has already done your workshop, So they've taken the hour to get to know the different stretches. So they've got that depth of knowledge there, but they've got a couple of minutes before they get on the horse. What sort of exercises would they do?
Probably depending on where they've come from. If they've come out of their car, they've driven for an hour to get to their horse, I would suggest they do some type of hip stretch, because most people that sit a lot have shortened hip flexors. So that can be a very quick thing to do before you hop into the saddle, because you'll find if you are quite tight through the front of the hips that the angle of the hip joint is going to be more closed than it is open. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Like you think about a chair seat. So if you're teaching someone that's got a chair seat, it's because that angle of the hip joint is closed. So it definitely makes sense. Yeah.
Yes, and a very quick thing you could do there without having to get down onto the floor, and you can even do it seated on the horse, is to just pick up your foot and hold it behind you so that your heel would up your backside if it gets out that high, and you would lengthen down through the knee and feel like you're almost pulling up slightly through the front of the pelvis to stretch the front of the thigh. That's just a very quick something that a rider could do prior to hopping on. Another good thing to mobilise the spine would be a roll down, and that would just require you to stand straight. So I'm taking for granted your horse is saddled up and in a safe place, and you could bend your knees just slightly and begin to roll your spine down. So you would nod your chin, your head would roll, then your neck, your upper back, your lower back. You take a nice breath in at the bottom and then re-stack your spine. So it would be a rolling and an articulating of the spine. Now, that isn't an exercise that's suitable for certain pathologies, but I won't go into that in this format. But if someone has a pathology that isn't suitable for that type of movement, then they would know that they shouldn't be doing it in the first place.
Okay. Yep. Yep.
So that's just two quick, simple things.
Yes, definitely. If someone's going to go down the path of becoming a Pilates instructor that teaches people horse riding, much the same career as you've got, what sort of core skills or character traits would they need to have? You know, someone that might be at high school now or is thinking about working in the horse industry and is a bit interested in Pilates. What would you say to them as far as the core skills and character traits it would take for them to get into to teaching that?
First and foremost, patience is absolutely vital, particularly when you're working with people and then progressing into working with them on their horses. And in our industry, you need to have a lot of patience in relation to your clients on a day-to-day basis and also in your own learning. I would recommend that first and foremost, if they're a patient person and they have a desire to learn and a true desire to teach, and you have to have that true desire to teach to be a really good, effective teacher. From there, if this was someone interested, they would then want to have a look around for a fully accredited comprehensive training course, Pilates training course from a recognised provider. So there's probably 3 or 4 main providers in Australia that are fully accredited. And I trained with the Australian Pilates Method Association. So their diploma of Pilates movement therapy involves around about 650 contact hours. So it's a very comprehensive course. You then have to do a certain amount of hours of supervised teaching. So you come out of that qualification ready to teach. The issue there is that is then just the very beginning. So a desire for or a love of ongoing learning is another prerequisite. Because our industry is ever changing.
Yep.
We're learning more and more every day, every week about the body. At the moment, one of the hot topics is the fascia, the connective tissue. And there's been an enormous amount of research on the role that it plays in the body. So patience, a desire to learn, a true desire to teach and to want to help people and to see change and help facilitate change in people, and then to find a very good fully accredited and recognised Pilates instructor training course for female class.
Mm-hmm.
But prior to that, I would really recommend that they do Pilates.
To make sure that they understand, then that way they've got the knowledge to be able to put back into it. Because as you say, it's a desire to learn. You know, if someone becomes an instructor, they've got to have a base knowledge of horses and a love of riding and a love of horses before they start. Yes, so I understand that about the Pilates, that they've got to have that knowledge of Pilates, first of all, before they even think about teaching it.
Yes, absolutely.
Yep.
And have it in their body. I think that's a very important aspect of teaching. You can know the theory, but you need to have work in your body. And I feel that way with the way I'm teaching as well. I need to know what it feels like on a horse to be trying a certain postural change or a certain exercise that I'm given. I need to know what that feels like. And as a Pilates practitioner, I need to know exactly in my body and have a very heightened awareness of all of the exercises that I'm teaching to be able to teach them well and to be able to cue them well and to have an understanding of how people will be learning them and how their different body type and idiosyncrasies will change the feeling in the body as well.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So
no, that's good.
It takes a long time, but I think where I work currently in Melbourne, we run a teacher training course, and so I work not so much directly with the students now. I did for quite a few years in another job. I did a lot of mentoring, but I watch the students, and they come in and they're really passionate and very open-minded and very keen to learn, and that's really important. So that's the first thing. If you've got the desire, then anything is possible, really.
Yep.
Sort of training.
Yep. What do you think your proudest moment's been as a Pilates instructor who teaches horse riding, horse riders?
That's a tricky question. To be honest, my pride really, I have so much pride in the clients that that's probably where I feel the most proud.
Yep.
Watching them, a lot of them come into a clinic, they've not done Pilates before, or if they have, they haven't done Pilates like I teach it. So they come with an open mind and an open heart and listen and take it all on, and then off we go on the horses. And when that makes me really proud that people are willing to have a go and then watch them achieve the results. Yep. And as I said earlier, when you're working with someone with their horse and they love their horse, and I've not met anyone ever, even if they were doing the wrong thing, that was intending to do the wrong thing by their horses.
That's exactly right.
Really watch people.
Yes.
And I'm in a privileged position, I believe, at the moment to be watching people improving and changing with sometimes, Glenys, the tiniest changes that I'm making. Really small things that make a profound difference.
Yes.
And I feel really proud.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good. You know, having that, as you say, the small difference, but the relief that it can give to a rider, to a horse. Yeah.
Yes.
And you might only spend one workshop with that person, but it could affect the rider and the horse for the rest of their life, but not just maybe with that horse, with any other horse that they ride, they come into contact with. It can improve that horse's life as well. Yeah.
Yep.
Thinking about when you first started, and it's something like Pilates for horse riders, when you first started, I'm sure you would have got a little bit of just people not understanding the benefits. You know, I'm thinking that itself would be a challenge. But what do you think has been your biggest challenge on your way to becoming a Pilates instructor for horse riders?
Look, I think there's been a number of them, but you're absolutely right. In the beginning, when I first started to talk about it, which was probably 10 years ago, a couple of people that I spoke to were quite negative and felt that, you know, what's the point? Riders just need to ride. And if you're fit for riding, why do you need to do anything else? So fortunately for me, over the last 10 years, that's changed a lot. You know, I know there's a number of top riders that put a lot of time and energy into their fitness. Stefan Peters from the US.
Yes.
Charlotte Jardin.
I was going to say, I know Charlotte does Pilates too, doesn't she?
I'm not sure if she does Pilates, but I know she certainly does
certainly
focus
worries
on her
about
fitness her...
and increasing her core strength. Yep, for sure.
That's right, yep. So that's been really good and helpful for me, because the more high-profile people that talk about the fact that they cross-train has helped me. So it was really a matter of timing. And fortunately for me, my personal timing, I have a son who has recently finished school, so I have more time and I can travel. I can go away and stay away weekends, which I couldn't do when he was younger. So as the equestrian world has awoken to the benefits of rider fitness and core and dynamic stability and Pilates and cross-training, my son has been growing up, and I've been gathering and absorbing and learning as much as I can, and the timing was just right for me. So the biggest challenge personally was making the decision to make that next big step, which was to sublet the studio in Ballarat and begin that sort of weekly commute.
Yep.
And I don't believe I could have made that any earlier, but it was a challenging decision to make, because I knew that my lifestyle, if it worked, my lifestyle would change.
Yes.
And it has.
Yep. No, that's good. That's good. If you're an equestrian coach or a horse riding instructor, or even if you aspire to be one, have a look at the free video series for horse riding instructors on the Horse Chats website. Go there now. Have a look. horsechats.com. Helen, have you got a book that you could recommend to our listeners? You know, maybe one that you've read. Have you got a book that you've written?
I haven't got a book that I've written. I have got some articles I've written, but not a book. I've got quite a lovely library of equestrian books, but I thought it might be helpful for the listeners to have a Pilates book. Is that a good idea?
I'm sure it would be.
A book I really like it's called The Pilates Bible, and there are 3 authors, Lynn Robinson, Lisa Bradshaw, and Nathan Gardner, and they work with Body Control Pilates in the UK, which is a very nice organisation. And what I love about this book, it's very thorough. It has beautiful photographs, and everything is laid out in a very simple way. So if you're not in a situation where you can get to a Pilates teacher, and I have to say, being with a teacher is the ultimate rather than learning out of a book. But if that's your only option, this is a beautiful book to do that with, because everything is explained very clearly and succinctly. The photographs are beautiful, and it's probably one of my favourite books to use every now and then as a reference to remind me of some of the hundreds of exercises that I know that I often forget.
For sure, yeah. And remember, you can find all the books recommended by our guests at horsechats.com/books. You can have a look at the guest page for the individual book they recommended, or just look at the recommended books by order of popularity at horsechats.com/books. Helen, what are you looking forward to now? What does your future hold?
I feel very excited about what's coming next. I love learning, and I'm about to embark on a little bit more further education, so I'm hoping to do that over the next 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
I'm super busy at the moment, so I haven't been able to start. But I want to just keep developing what I'm doing now and see how much further I can take it. There's always more learning to be done by me, and that's what I'm planning to do, to just keep learning and then applying what I learn to my clients and hope that they will keep coming. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds good. Sounds good. I'm going to ask you before we finish, just summarising your philosophy with Pilates for equestrians, just into a sentence or two. What would you say to our listeners? Just something to leave them with.
There's a beautiful quote that I have on my website that by Charles de Courcy, and I actually emailed Charles. I don't know him personally, to see if I could use this quote, and he was delightful and said that I could. So I feel privileged to actually have this on my website.
Good.
But he says, "The horse cannot go better than the rider will allow."
Yes.
And I love that quote. And it does sum up my philosophy. I really believe that we should aim to be the athletic equivalent of the horse. Now, that doesn't mean, I don't want that to frighten people who are pleasure riders and feel that they have to cross-train extensively, because they don't. I think if you look at being an equivalent of your horse, if you're a high-level rider, then I do believe that your level of training needs to rise up to meet that. And even if you are, well, Charlotte Dujardin is a classic example. She's a beautiful rider, but she still takes the time and puts the effort and the commitment into looking after her body. And even if you are someone who rides once a week and goes out hacking, riding through the bush, then the more mobile and supple and strong you can be, even if that just means 10 minutes a day you take some time to commit to your own body, then the better ride you're going to have. And it really doesn't take that much time. One of the articles I wrote most recently for Dressage Today was a 6 to 10 minute routine that you can do. And I think if everyone could find just a couple of exercises that they fit into their day and maybe change that. So if you were to go and buy the book I've recommended, for example, maybe pick a couple of exercises and do them for a month, and then perhaps add one more in for another month, and build yourself up to where if you commit between 5 and 20 minutes a day to something that is going to improve your posture, improve your ability to move, it is going to have a big impact on your riding from the perspective of pleasure for both you and your horse, and also hopefully improve your posture, because that is a very big issue too. Posture is hugely important.
Yep. That's good. Helen, if people would like to contact you about a workshop or even more videos, and I know we've got some on your Facebook page, and we'll have that page available at horsechats.com/Helen Fletcher, or go to horsechats.com, search for Helen or search for Fletcher. But if they were going to contact you directly, what's your best contact? How can they get hold of you?
They can contact me through if they go onto my website, which is equipoisepilates.com.au.
And that website will be on horsechats.com just in case you miss it. But yes, keep going, Helen, sorry.
No, that's okay. My email address is there, and apologies to all of the listeners. My email address is ridiculously long, but once you have it in your computer, it's fine. My email address is there and my phone number is there. So they're very welcome to email me or call me. And I'm happy to hear from anyone. Okay.
And the phone number, 0411 552 300. Is that the one?
That's right.
Perfect. And we'll put that on your Horse Chats page just in case someone missed out. Okay. Helen, this was very good. It was a very good compliment. And I think a lot of people are starting to realise the benefits now of cross-training, not just going out to become a competitive rider, but the benefits of cross-training to improve their competition results. And yeah, I think if they want to talk to Helen about a workshop or just even visit her Facebook page and have a look at the videos, I think that'll be extra educational, that you can build up on what you've learnt today and learn some more about this particular aspect of horses. So thank you, Helen. Thank you for coming on, and thank you for chatting to us. And we look forward to chatting to you some more very soon.
Yes, that's terrific. And thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed it.
Oh, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Now, if you're still there, you probably know that I'm absolutely passionate about education within the horse industry. That's why I host this podcast. My other venture is Online Horse College. Have a look now at onlinehorsecollege.com, and I'll see you over there.
Remember that our comments and instructions are general in nature and do not take into consideration your individual horses or your individual ability and circumstances. If you enjoyed this podcast, then please leave your comment below.